Hi, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Astrology Show here on the Wisdom Hub and in conjunction with Quantum Plant Healing. Today, as always, over the last year and a half, it's my great pleasure to be talking to the wonderful astrologer, Pam Gregory. Hi, Pam, how are you doing?
Yeah, great. It looks so warm where you are, Davyd.
It is.
Really
The sun is coming up right now, and as we were just reflecting before we hit record, a year ago, I was in Mexico. I hadn't been here very long, and I was in a freezing cold hotel, trying not to shiver on camera whilst we were doing the piece about the solstice. But yeah, the sun is shining here. We do have lots of fireworks going off in the background, even though it's 10:30 on a Sunday morning. The Mexicans love to use fireworks for no apparent reason. So if you do hear anything in the background, it's okay. I'm not being shot at, everybody. It's all good. I am perfectly safe. I just want to kind of, before we start, just again say thank you, Pam, for all of the last year and a half. You've had a very profound effect on my life, and where I'm sat now is actually the result of many things that have come out of doing the various shows with you for the solstices and equinoxes. So right now I'm sat on a balcony in a 500-year-old building, an old monastic building with huge gardens down below and up above, and we just moved in this week, and this is going to be our center for our new earth vision, working with plants and medicines and creating a quantum plant medicine wisdom school, and connecting with the local Puripecha culture, the indigenous people of this area that are deeply connected to Peru. And so as we enter into this big Capricorn solstice energy that we've got on the 21st, I just wanted to share that, because this is what can happen when we work with the astrology and with plant medicine, and actually in our case also working with Mayan wave spell magic. So again, I just want to thank you, Pam, and I'm so pleased to hear that the knee is healing, because I know how painful that's been for you. So
yeah, thank you. I'm just delighted to hear, about your new life, and it's another set of people envisaging new earth and bring it into manifestation. That's what's thrilling, because this is happening all over the world with different people, different ways, but nevertheless they're all manifestations of new earth, to live a more loving, kinder, more compassionate, more peaceful life. And well done you on manifesting that. Well done you.
Bless you, and thank you for all of the support in that. And today we are going to be talking about the Capricorn solstice, which has some very big energies of new beginnings, resetting. And I just want to again share with everybody that when we are in a place of complete trust and we surrender and we do our inner work and we've let go of all of the things that no longer serve us, it frees up the whole of our field to be able to receive beautiful gifts and to see our visions come to a place of manifestation, which is really what this whole process has been about. And I feel like we're coming to some very critical moments as we learn how to manifest from our higher 5D mind down through our clean emotional space, the fourth dimensional astral planes, into 3D. This is the process. And if we have those distortions in our field, then it's more difficult because our visions get muddied. So as we talk about this solstice energy, I just wanted to bring that into the picture, because it's really, I think, the culmination of much of our work, both yours and mine, sharing over the last years with our different audiences, trying to empower people and remind people how powerful the astrology is. So I think that's a nice way of introing into today's talk that we're going to be doing about the Capricorn solstice. But do you want to bring in any other pieces before or after that? Because there's a lot of other powerful astrology going on.
Yeah, thank you, Davyd. And yeah, that was all beautifully said. I think I'd just like to kind of initially talk more generally about the Capricorn solstice, as I see it, really is the setup for 2023, which is an immense year of change with much clearer endings and beginnings appearing. A lot more green shoots of new earth, but equally the old collapsing more rapidly. And every equinox and solstice, as I've always said, is like striking a tuning fork for the next 3 months. It sets up the energy for the next 3 months. And we're right in this crucible of change. If you sort of see that this was essentially a 20-year process of spiritual evolution for humanity from 2012 to 2032, we are right smack bang in the middle of this, right at the pivot point, with moving away from the old collapsing world into new earth, which is what you're doing so beautifully in Mexico. And we're on a faster trajectory. We've done pretty well as a collective, and we're now ahead of that original timetable. And you know, I'm sure you and I have had these conversations about the fork in the road, Davyd, that there's a big fork in the road for the collective. One, and of course, we're all on our very individual timelines increasingly, but nevertheless, they are two broad collective paths, one being defined by fear and the other being defined by love. And what's really important, I think, in terms of our self-empowerment is nobody forces us onto either of those paths. We self-select by our own frequency. And as I was preparing for our conversation today, I remembered just eons ago when I was a teenager, I remember I read that incredible book by Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning. And as you probably know, he wrote it in a concentration camp. I think it was Auschwitz, where, you know, he said every freedom had been taken away except the freedom of thought. Except that, you know, and so that had a profound effect on me as a teenager, and I've never, ever forgotten that. You know, no Mills and Boon for me. Pretty heavy stuff at that point. But anyway, but, you know, we always have the freedom of thought, and our thoughts are electrical impulses, which lead to our emotions, which are magnetic waves, and the combination of those determine our default point of frequency, where we're at. So nobody forces you onto either path. You choose. Every single one of us in the world, and no matter what the circumstances, we still have the freedom to choose our thinking and our emotional set point. That's so, so important. And so, because whenever you're in fear, you are quantum entangling with that destination of where that's going to, where that path is going to. If you're quantum entangling with love, you're committing yourself emotionally to that destination. And remember, and you know what is helpful, I mean, all my decades of yoga really help, because in yoga, you're taught to be the observer. So I think the first step with self-empowerment is to step up and say, what am I thinking? My thinking is separate from who I am, actually. I'm a divine spark, and I can observe my thinking. And that's the first step. What am I thinking? Can I change my thinking? Can I flip it from negative to positive? And so observing the thinking, observing the emotions on a sort of moment-to-moment basis gets us into the habit of being the observer. So those are the, you know, the first steps in that self-empowerment. And as you and I have spoken, Davyd, there's so much light coming in now. I think there's going to be a big wave of light on the 12th, another huge wave of light around the solstice that is going to raise our consciousness, another huge wave of light codes coming in March, another quantum jump in our consciousness. And because of that, and I can't say definitely with this because astrology doesn't predict events and the timelines are changing so quickly all the time, depending on where the collective's at, there may well be some big diversion coming up this month to say, it's a really big scary thing over here. Do not quantum entangle with that diversion. Remember this conversation that you and I are having right now and saying, I'm going to stick to my, you know, it's almost like, because we are moving into new energetic territory, it's almost like you're setting your GPS for somewhere you've never been before. It's invisible because you've never been to it. And the GPS is kind of invisible. So you set your GPS to somewhere you've never been before. And generally we will trust the GPS. We don't think, so set your GPS for love. Set your GPS for love. You don't think halfway around the journey, you know, oh, no, I think this is too scary. I'm just going to go up this little track up here that leads into a dead-end farmyard. Because that's not a good idea. No. You know, trust the destination of love that you've set on your GPS and don't deviate. Stick to that. Hold the line. And I want to say that, you know, really, really firmly, because each of those paths, I'll let you speak in a minute, each of those paths essentially are forming a huge energetic hologram. And every time we dip into fear or we dip into love, we're adding to that energetic wave of where they are taking us to. And it's very clear to see where the fear trajectory timeline is taking us to, clear as day. But we have to have the courage, and a lot of things in this Capricorn Solstice astrologically are helping us with courage to stick to that higher path, which is invisible. We've never been there, new energetic territory, but that's what we're committing to. Does
Wow,
that make sense, Davyd?
Totally. And as always, we've been talking about these themes pretty much since the first videos we did about 18 months ago. And I concur with everything that you've said. And, obviously I work with a lot of plant medicine. And so I've been, more experienced in some of those other realms of consciousness by working with the plants and been preparing myself very strongly for the last probably 3 years ahead of what I knew was coming, even though I didn't know how it was going to unfold. My spirit guides and my allies warned me. It's like, you need to be able to be adept in your astral body. You need to make sure that your astral body is clean and clear so that it's not getting manipulated, so that you can go to your eagle's perch more often, or even be in that state of being all of the time. Maybe not always with the vast visions that we can have from the higher mind space, but living in that way, understanding that every moment is important. And again, talked about some of these plants before, but plants like dandelion really show us the only thing that exists is the present moment. And what's going on for you in that present moment? Is your mind in a place of fear about something that's coming down the road towards you? Is it stuck in the past, dwelling on something that is no longer serving you either? Or are you here in this moment, looking at the beauty that is always around you, particularly when you're in a place like this in Mexico, and asking yourself, what's going on for me right now? Because dandelion teaches us that every moment is divine, and how we experience that divinity in any moment is down to us and whether we're present. So, little old dandelion that grows in the cracks and gets Roundup sprayed on. And this guy has had war waged on him for probably millennia, and still he shows up and he wants to give his gifts. And, for me, the eagle's perch is an important, not only an idea, but it's also a way of being, so that we can observe ourselves. We can be quantum on ourselves. We can be the observer and the observed. And when we go to that place more often, we can see our trigger points. Why am I getting emotionally charged? Why am I afraid? Because in a higher mind space, fear has no place. Literally, there's no space for it. And, sometimes people say, oh, that's easy for you to say and blah, blah, you don't have this going on in your life and that going on. I'm like, well, I don't now, but I have had in the past. But I've worked with these tools to release myself from the energetic frequencies that were burdening me and weighing me down. Yeah. And I think that's an important point to make as we get into the astrology in a minute, and just to concur with all of the things that you've said. And of course, freedom of thought is the last bastion of our sovereignty. And I would dare to suggest that the last couple of years has been an assault on that freedom of thought that we have, trying to pull us into a place that's not free to think clearly. So again, the astrology, working with plant medicine, working with yoga, working with sound, so many different mechanisms, but we have to be present with ourselves and asking ourselves, what is it that I want for myself? Not what is it I want for myself based on what everybody else is doing, what everybody else needs from me, but what do I want for myself? Because that's what it is to think, in a sovereign way. And that is what this whole process is about. So I feel the astrology that we are coming into now, for those of us who've been working in this way, eliminating the unhelpful frequencies, is now going to allow many people to really start to manifest their visions, because the energy is there for it. The frequencies are there for it. If we're not in a place of fear or anxiety or toxicity, that's a big issue right now, keeping yourself clear of toxicity. And the more we get attuned to our physical body, the more we suddenly feel even a small amount of toxicity come in. And once you get to that place and you feel like, I just got slimed by something, I'm suddenly feeling anxious when I was feeling great. Don't just put it to one side and come, I'll look at that later, maybe next week's not. No, go home, sit down and do a clearing immediately, because the toxicity can build up very quickly in our energetic fields. And so this is all about how much do you love yourself too, right? Do I love myself enough to take care of myself in every moment of every day, so that I'm feeling happy and strong and full of inspiration and creativity? And if I'm not in that space, which should be our default setting, then you should be asking yourself why. And keep asking yourself why until you feel better. So anyway,
absolutely. And two really simple techniques you can use that are free for everybody. One is the Hawaiian forgiveness prayer, Ho'oponopono, and the other is emotional freedom technique, tapping, which if you don't know about it, you can learn it in 5 minutes on a YouTube demo. Those two things are free at home anytime for you to use, and they're I find them really invaluable in my toolkit for clearing. So just really to support what we've both been saying about new energetic territory, it's very interesting that Jupiter is now moving forwards, as is Saturn, as is Neptune, as is Pluto, and by the 22nd of January, so will Mercury, Mars, and Uranus be. So every single planet will be moving forwards by the 22nd of January. They've got this huge momentum. And also, it's interesting to see Jupiter will not come back to where it is right now for roughly another 12 years. Saturn will not come back to that point in Aquarius. Neptune will never be at 22 of Pisces again. Pluto will come back to 27 degrees of Capricorn, but not to the degree and minute that it's at the solstice. So yes, the personal, faster moving planets will come back to the same place, but not those outer planets. So that really reinforces this idea of we are moving into new energetic territory, new ground. We're leaving the old behind. So as you and I were talking before we started to record, Davyd, really look at your life, your relationships, your jobs, your circumstances, and really say, does this person, do these circumstances lift my frequency or lower it? Right. Because this is a time to leave the old self behind and welcome in this incredible opportunity for the biggest jump in human evolution we've ever been offered. So, you know, I've been saying, recently, don't make a pig's ear of it. You know, it's probably the biggest opportunity we've had in any lifetime, right, to really make that big jump. And so, but we can only welcome in these very high frequency light codes if we have left the old self behind, in however you define your old self.
I think the phrase that I like to use here is also stay on target. Stay on target, keep your vision in your mind. Do not allow yourself to get pulled into the narratives of the illusion box, what's going on with the media, or even what's going on with other people. It's about you right now, and you know, being in that space of clarity about what you want. And you know, I think I was watching your recent video for the upcoming, I think it's the full moon, and you said that is it 5 new moons or 5 full moons in a row that are at the first
5 new moons, yeah. 5 new moons at degree 1 of their sign. Remarkable.
Right. I mean, to me, again, that just speaks of the energy of everything being new. And, you know, at the risk of kind of sounding blasé, blink and you might miss it. This is a once in a millennium lifetime, possibly once in a being lifetime, for us to experience a shift, something that, as you said, we've not really gone through before. And we don't have a GPS really that covers it. And I like the scene from the old Indiana Jones movie. I think it's the last one, The Last Crusade, where he's going to find the Holy Grail and there's a big kind of cavern and he remembers about the invisible bridge and he throws the sand across and he's walking across this bridge, which looks like, you know, it's going to drop into the abyss, but somehow his faith carries him across to the Grail. So I love that scene.
Yeah, I remember that very clearly. It's a great analogy for now. Great analogy. Trust the invisible. Trust your GPS destination.
Trust your heart, I think, is the most important thing. When you follow the frequency of your heart, no matter where it takes you, no matter what anyone else says, do what feels good to you, because that's the most important thing. So should we pull up the chart for the solstice?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, let me do that right now.
I have to apologize if I'm fading in and out of the sunlight and the shadows here, because
you have sun. You have sun. Envy you.
I don't want to make everybody back in Britain feel despondent about where they are. So I'm going to just pretend it's freezing cold here, which is why I've got a jumper on. So I am empathizing with everybody in the Northern Hemisphere at the moment who's experiencing a slightly colder climate to where I am. So
freezing. So anyway, so here we go. So obviously we have the sun. Can everybody see that, Davyd? Is that clear?
Yeah, I've got it up. Yeah, it's good.
Okay, so obviously this is the Capricorn solstice, the moment that when the sun enters Capricorn, 0 of Capricorn. I've set this for England, this chart, because that's where I live. So ignore the clock face, ignore the houses. We're just looking at where the planets fall and the aspects between them. So the sun at 0 of Capricorn. Now, any 0 degree of the cardinal signs is known as the world axis or the Aries point. Within 2 degrees of all by the side. So 28 degrees of the mutables to 2 degrees of the cardinals is the world axis. And that's when events tend to be more likely to be thrown onto the public stage in some way. So what is very interesting here, to take the first step of this, is that this is exactly square to Jupiter. Jupiter is at 0 degrees 7 minutes of Aries. So that's right at the Aries point, the very, very first degree of the zodiac. Now, yes, Jupiter has a reliable 12-year orbit, but it's remarkable that it is absolutely at 0 of Aries at the Capricorn solstice. That's very potent in terms of wisdom, higher consciousness coming in, a bigger future vision. Moving into Aries, this is about your courage, your sovereignty, big time about sovereignty, independence, individuality, your bravery, your sense of freedom, your sense of confidence, really stepping into a whole new 12-year episode. So if you go back to June 2010 or January 2011, that's the last time that Jupiter was at 0 of Aries, what was happening for you? See in your own chart where the early degrees of Aries sit in your chart. That will help you remember what was happening 12 years ago. But you're going to get a vortexing upwards, a repeat of whatever. And usually Jupiter brings success or expansion or recognition. So whichever house area it is moving through for you, and it will stay in Aries until May, that house area is likely to be potentially an area of personal growth or expansion for you. So very, very positive. But not only that, remarkably, I was talking about this in my new moon video, because the new moon is only 2 days after the solstice, is that the dwarf planet Manwe is at 2933 of Pisces. It's just 27 minutes away from that 0 Aries. So it's counted as being on the Aries point. And it will get to the Aries point exactly in late January. It's interesting that not only do we have 5 new moons at 1 degree of their sign, that we have all of those planets moving forwards that aren't going to come back to the degrees they're at the moment, as I've just described, but we have Manwe about to change sign, moving into Aries at the end of January. We have Haumea has just moved into Scorpio on the 12th of November. We have another dwarf planet called Sedna, which has an 11,400 year orbit that's about to shift from Taurus into Gemini in June. And you say, well, June's a few months away, but if you've got an 11,400 year orbit, it's a drop in the bucket.
Right.
So this is very propitious. Manwe is one of the most powerful symbols, I believe, for New Earth. I want to credit Kelly Hunter, as I always do here. She has done a load of research on and that's how I initially heard about these dwarf planets. But Manwe is the highest archangel, closest to the mind of God, the highest source of divine intelligence. He lives beyond the dimensions of time. He's dedicated to the triumph of light over dark. He's dedicated to world renewal. And to quote Kelly's words here, I'm going to credit to her, these are her exact words about Manwe. He is the most closely tuned to the original divine vision, because he, with his wife Vada, created the cosmos. Read Silmarillion, Tolkien's book about Manwe and Vada. To quote Kelly again, this is the turning point of divine intervention. Sorry, divine intent. Turning point of divine intent. The fact that Manwe and Jupiter are at 0 of Aries at this Capricorn solstice is incredibly powerful. Yeah. And the dwarf planets, the Kuiper belt objects, have an enormous life force. They are largely creator gods. They're regenerative. Also at this same point in conjunction, that's an allowable conjunction, Salacia is at 628 of Aries. Salacia, wife of Neptune in myth, linked to the shimmering sunlight and moonlight on the water. To me, she's all about liquid light. She's linked to this high frequency photonic light, which we're going to be moving through for the next 2,000 years. And she, I believe, is going to give us a much greater understanding, not only of light codes and frequencies, but how we pull manifestation out of the quantum soup, out of the invisible ether, into our reality. I also believe she's very linked to embodying more light in our bodies to become the light body.
Wow, yeah.
Should I keep going, David, or?
Yeah, I just want to make a couple of just quick comments. First of all, also thank you for crediting Kelly. Some of the audience may know that we've been doing a more regular Moons of Mythos show once a month. And again, like yourself, I have a lot of gratitude to Kelly for helping me to understand these new Kuiper Belt objects. And what we're understanding through doing those shows is the quantum aspect, or the higher notes of the astrology that are coming through with these KBOs on top of the older kind of system that we've had. And again, I think this is probably part of the Saturn square Uranus, that we've been going through, the Aquarian mind offering us a new structure with Saturn, but also deeply connected to the Earth. But at the same time, I often think of Aquarius as being sort of quantum, but so is Uranus. And so I feel like we've got this quantum energy coming through, and the Kuiper Belt objects seem to be the next kind of note, or the higher notes of what we already understand. And it's the same with the plant medicine that we've been working with. We're now understanding at a much more quantum level, particularly myself and my friend Pete Jackson Maine, that I do the Web of Weird podcast with, seeing that plants actually have the ability to speak to our field and work out what's going wrong with us by communicating directly with us. I mean, I've been sharing this a lot recently, but it's just that's the potentiality that we have moving into this new era. And what you just said about liquid light, super interesting. Through the immersions that we've been doing, we got connected to a wonderful artist called Shirley Chantal, or Lemurian Dreamweaver, and she's been channeling light code language of the plants from the quantum space. You can see some of the videos we've done on the YouTube channel that I have, but it just speaks to me very much of what you just said about Salacia, and how some of us are now able to tap into these light code frequencies more, even if we don't fully understand what they are. They're coming through different people whose channels are nice and clear. So many people are already stepping into this space and receiving these impulses. And I think this is so exciting. It's just beautiful to see how we can share these different gifts, and also collaborate with people in the new way, whether it's astrology or art or plant medicine. It's super exciting.
Yeah, it really, really is. And the good news, and I mentioned this in my new moon video, Davyd, but the really tough stuff of the Saturn conjunct Pluto conjunction that we had all through 2020, 2021, and also the tough Saturn square Uranus we had through 2021, 2022. The Saturn conjunct Pluto has moved away. The Saturn square to Uranus is just about hanging on operationally here. 21 degrees of Aquarius to 15 of Taurus. So that's, that's a 6-degree orb away from exactitude, that square, just about operational. But as we move over into the new year, that will start to pull away. And this is obviously, as I've talked ad infinitum, been the clash between the old world and the new, the past and the future, control and freedom, So that suggests that, that although we still feel there's a lot of chaos and disintegration at the 3D level, and there is, because Pluto's still got to move out of the last few degrees of Capricorn, we don't have some of the real heavy numbers with planetary aspects that we've had in the last 3 years. And that is another thing that helps me lift my heart and lift my optimism as well.
Right.
The other thing, shall I keep going, Davyd?
Yeah, please. Yeah, please carry on.
Okay, so down here we have the Sun conjunct a dwarf planet called Ixion. Again, I talked about Ixion in the new moon video at 235 of Capricorn. Ixion at a lower level of expression is known as the lawless brother of Pluto. He was totally without a moral compass. He murdered his father-in-law. He was excommunicated by the gods from heaven. Zeus, king of the gods, gave him a second chance, which he kind of wrecked in trying to rape Zeus's wife Hera. And at that point, he was spun off on a burning wheel into eternity. So the lack of moral compass and the lack of any repentance is the lower level of expression of Ixion, and some people may feel that that is playing out in society. The higher level of expression is going your own individual way, finding joy through simplicity, joy through gratitude, and creating your own individual bliss. That is another expression of New Earth and the people who are following the New Earth path.
Yeah. You can almost say that it's like sovereignty, really, the ultimate expression of sovereignty, but having had to conquer the demons of the lower expression of Ixion, which is basically I'll do whatever I want and I'll hurt people. So we can see the two different sides. And I love the way you talk about Ixion. I actually have Ixion on my natal chart conjunct Mars in Scorpio. When I realized that,
wow.
yeah, I suddenly
I
was
just
like,
got
well,
lucky, I guess, eh?
well, I think it certainly makes a lot of sense in my teenage years and my young adulthood in my 20s. It's just like, that's the guy that caused all of the problems for me. So this is a wild character, Ixion, right? So, you know, we have to watch his more nefarious activities, but also strive towards that complete sense of freedom with integrity, which I think is what Ixion offers us.
Yeah, well, which is exactly what you are doing now.
Right.
In, you know, the life you're living now.
Yeah.
Then we have Quaoar. Quaoar I love as well. Again, this is an operational conjunction about just over 6 degrees. Quaoar was the creator god of the Tongva people, the original inhabitants around the Los Angeles basin. Quaoar always comes out of chaos. There's always chaos, but Quaoar knows as a creator god, he cannot create from chaos because the frequency is too low. So he encourages his people to sing and dance to raise their frequency, and then sets the intention to manifest from that higher point of frequency. So very instructive for us. You can't create from the chaos, the frequency is too low. Something else here, which this feeds into, I'm very excited about this actually. This feeds into a whole theme of Saturn moving into Pisces, which it does on the 8th of March and will stay there essentially until 2025, about 2.5 years. Now, at a lower level of expression, Saturn moving into Pisces can be increased paranoia and victimhood and almost psychosis. But at a higher level of expression, this is more spiritual masters coming forwards. Please use discernment with whoever you're following, listening to. But more important, because Saturn is the master, Saturn is the teacher, Pisces is spirituality, but even more important is this is our own spiritual mastery that we're learning. Saturn moving into Pisces is our spiritual mastery. And exactly as you've said, Davyd, the Kuiper Belt objects are the higher octave of consciousness that are helping us to get to that spiritual mastery. So I'm super excited about that. So they're feeding into that theme already. There's also, I don't know if you can see it's too clear, but Jupiter is semi-square 45 degrees from Uranus. Now, Jupiter and Uranus have quite a lot in common. They're both planets of the future. They're both planets of freedom. They're both planets of higher consciousness. And Uranus can give us sudden breakthroughs in that higher consciousness. So round about the solstice, where I think we're going to see surges of this high frequency energy coming in, many people will be having breakthroughs to higher level of consciousness. But be open to that. I said in the new moon video, can you set an intention that is something like, I am already welcoming in an expanded consciousness, Jupiter, Uranus, an expanded consciousness of love. I'm already welcoming in an expanded consciousness of love. And if you can have an intention that's something like that, use your own words, you'll be on the right track. It's interesting as well, these are pretty faint, but these very faint blue lines with a big Q, those are called quintiles, 72-degree aspects. We have 5 of them. And they are aspects of creativity. So there's a lot of creativity at this time too, you know, with which we can weave our future. Just a couple of final things to say that are quite interesting. I mentioned to Davyd just before we got on the call that Mars retrograde in Gemini. Gemini rules things like transport and it rules things like the postal service. It's very interesting in the UK because Mars is going backwards. We've got a postal strike and a train strike. This may be happening in other countries, I don't know, but it was such a literal expression of retrograde Mars in Gemini. Yeah, so those are the big things I want to say. I think the only other thing to say is a big thing. We are moving into a much bigger age of self-empowerment, and recognize that and step into that big time, big time, big time. With Pluto moving into Aquarius, also in March, 23rd of March, it's its first entry into Aquarius, but this is going to start to shift the power away from top-down structures to the people. And we are going to be moving into a paradigm shattering time. Somebody told me today that Nassim Harriman, who I think is a genius, is publishing a new paper on physics imminently that may change the whole understanding of our reality, physics and our own reality. I think all of my understanding of astrology could hit the wall, frankly, and I've got to let go of that attachment,
right,
and say, okay, I'm open to something which is a much more galactic astrology, which
right.
I'm going to have to learn from scratch, because paradigms are going to be shattered as we go forwards.
Like you, I've been contemplating the shift in my own work from the ideas of plant spirits or plant intelligence or plant consciousness to quantum plant intelligence, and understanding that there's a new layer of plant communication that's coming through. And I'm seeing it in the immersions that we've been running. I'm seeing it with some of my own students. I'm seeing it with myself, and letting go of one of the things that we've been talking about actually is the idea of whether plants are actually poisonous. We were talking in one of the immersions we did about the elder tree, the elder mother, and my colleague Pete made the comment. He said, well, how come sometimes people eat elderberries and they vomit, sometimes they have diarrhea, and sometimes they feel perfectly fine? And it's because elder is an neuromodulator, and so it's actually able to come in and talk to our body, and it's like, oh, what's going on? Oh, this needs to be released. Okay, let's purge, or let's purge out the lower pathway. Or actually, everything's okay. No need to do any purging. But hey, why don't you take the benefits of all of the antimicrobial, antiviral properties that elder has? And so, these ideas that we've been given, particularly about plants and why some of them might be poisonous or not, actually in the end is we're missing the whole point, is that we can communicate with a quantum intelligence that can have a back and forth conversation and work out what do we need. And so I think that all of these ideas is just a way of expressing how we can start to break down our own realities and things that we've been working with for many years and could be somewhat attached to if we're not careful. But if we flip that and more dandelion style of being in a place of trust, or like Indiana Jones on the bridge, and say, hey, this is actually an opportunity for something really exciting, a chance for me to evolve myself, for me to evolve with my work, to see the work evolve. And I think that this work with the KBOs and the astrology and the plant medicine and a number of other modalities is super exciting. It feels very pioneering to see. And in fact, myself and Kelly did a piece for the upcoming U immersion talking about Saturn, because the U tree and Saturn are very linked. And what you were just saying there about Saturn entering Pisces is also exciting. But I just want to loop back to a couple of things you said, which I think are important to do with Quaoar. So in one of the sessions I did with the Ascended Master, Zach, who's channeled by Janet, he said that it's really important to dance and move and sing. And he was expressing that because he said it's a way of shaking off some of the toxicity, from our environment. And so I love the idea that we can sing and dance our way into our new earth by freeing ourselves of those unhelpful frequencies, but being in that high vibrational space that we get when we dance and we sing, and we allow ourselves to be a conduit for that energy to come from creative source or divine spirit, or however you want to think about this. And I think that's really beautiful, because it's not only good for us emotionally, it's also good for us physically too, right? We get ourselves into shape, and we've been over the last couple of years put into places where we've been forced to be more sedentary, which, if we were observing the flow of the astrology, we came to understand this was a chance to go inwards and start dealing with the things that no longer served us. And one thing that's come up, which, as this video is going to be coming out probably about 10 days before the solstice, so Jupiter today is still at the 29th degree of Pisces. And I was thinking about this, and being Pisces rising myself, the energy's been super strong for me tuning into the collective. But what I felt is that if we think about sort of Pisces being the collective and water and Jupiter expanding, that last degree feels to me it's like the water levels of the emotional realms are rising. And can we keep our head above the waterline before we get to this amazing opportunity that's coming at solstice? So I just want to say this for any of our listeners out there who might be really going through it, experiencing lots of emotional triggers. Just stay the distance, keep on target, keep doing the work, keep releasing, and keep your head above the water. Because if we're heavy with our stuff, we're going to get pulled down under the water, and we're not going to be in the right shape to be able to embrace these amazing opportunities that are coming up for us to expand. And so again, it's just being in a place of trust. And this is where the plants come in, working with plants like the Artemisias and the elder really help shine a light into those little dark corners of our psyche and our field that maybe we haven't wanted to look at for a while. And so if that's still going on for you, there's still plenty of ways to release at this time. And so this process now between where we are today and solstice feels like it could be big. I concur with you, and many people are saying the same thing. Feels like something big is coming down the road very fast towards us. And, you know, the way I look at it is that Mother Earth was already going to ascend and evolve into a different state of consciousness. And she very gracefully decided to give us an invitation to come with her. And so she's going, and it's up to us whether we go with her or not. She, you know, she's going to do her own thing anyway. And so to look back to what you said at the beginning, it's so important. So many people want to kick the can down the road and deal with their stuff next year, 25, 26. There's always another reason to put stuff off. And as we've both been saying, I think all of this year and you know, in various ways, this is the time, everybody. This is the time to feel brave, to feel courageous, to be in a place of trust. Because at the end of the day, our higher selves only ever want what's best for us. And sometimes they even engineer situations that can seem difficult or challenging, but, you know, even unexpected house moves, you know, at this time of year, and could to many people be a meltdown situation. But if we flip them and say, okay, this has happened for me anyway, and let's embrace the situation and see what happens, then, oof, it's amazing what can happen if we just get out of the way of ourselves. You know, so I think I just wanted to share this because I see from many of my friends and things going on in the collective that a lot of people are really struggling with their emotional baggage right now. And so the trick is to let go, not to hold on, not even to hold on to our ways of working that we've done before, or our lifestyle that we've had before, or the fact that we really wanted to have a holiday. It's like holidays can wait. We've got a whole future of beautiful holidays and trips and adventures awaiting us. So I think patience has been a big key for me over this year. It's just being patient, being in a place of trust and letting things flow.
I think for many of us, absolutely. Fabulous point about Jupiter at 29 of Pisces, Davyd. Fabulous point, because yes, that can indicate it's the shadow, you know, it's the anoretic degree, that last degree of any sign, so it can express in a shadow way. So, you know, the less positive side of Pisces. So yes, it can indicate flooding, but it can indicate, as you say, emotional overwhelm, total emotional overwhelm. So we have to step into our mastery with that and get beyond it, because it's almost like, you know, you're climbing a mountain, you've slogged and slogged and slogged and slogged, and you just think, I just can't hang on anymore. But if you only could a few more feet, wow, the view from the top is going to be just awesome. You know, it's a whole new beginning, particularly with Jupiter and Manwe being at that 0 degrees of Aries at the solstice. That is so powerful. I want to go back also to what you were saying about the quantum plant medicine and how plants are communicating from that level. This is Lemurian. This is what the Lemurians did. And that energy is coming back to us. And that's, I know you had a conversation with Zach about this, but that's what's so exciting, because they were able to be completely in harmony with all of nature, to tune in, to communicate with the animals, the plants, the trees, everything, because they were just one harmonious oneness in nature. They weren't separate. They didn't exploit and pillage. So it's really beautiful what you said, because we are remembering those abilities which we thought were superhuman, but are going to become the new normal, as it were.
Right. It's incredible. And actually, you know, some of us have been pondering the realm that was Lemuria, and coming to conclusions that maybe Lemuria is what we might also call the other world, which is the more feminine, elven world, which was much more connected to nature, but never actually incarnated into 3D. I think that's an important point to make, and it's one that Zach confirmed on one of the talks, is the Lemurians never manifested down into 3D. They had an experience of nature that was much more etheric. And actually, as the U mysteries that I spent 5 years studying with my teacher, Michael Donning, the U shaman, he expressed that the other world was bathed in a Saturnian light. We didn't have the solar sun being in our realm that we have now. And, you know, then he also came to find out that before our solar sun, Jupiter was also our sun briefly here on the planet. And I was wondering, maybe that was the time of the Atlantean world, when we were starting to become more manifest down into 3D. And then finally, Taito Inti, the solar sun being, comes into our realm when we become more manifest. And that's a long story and maybe another call for another time. But I just want to share that because it's like, you know, you mentioned Saturn moving into Pisces, which Saturn often gets a bad rap. I mean, Kelly just did a nice piece for the U Emotion about Saturn energy, and I like the old boy. I think he gives a structure. And sometimes he gets pinned with the blame of the bad structure of the system or the matrix that we've been living under. And it's like, no, that wasn't his fault. That's what was created with that energy. But we can also flip that to a higher note, which can be more collective, more empathic, more attuned to what is going on around, with everyone around us, with that sort of Piscean energy, but also Saturn giving us a structure. Because, sometimes I think Saturn in Pisces is a little bit strange. There's so much water, and how do you create a structure in mutable water? So I think that's a big question as we move forward for our society, is how do we be the drop in the ocean, remain individualized as a being, but also be part of the collective ocean of consciousness. And I think that that's really the exciting part of, the evolution. We went from the Lemurian world of her story, very feminine, very yin, very watery, into the more yang, solar, masculine energy of his story. And now they're both concluded. We've done our work. We've got to the place of balance and harmony with the masculine and feminine energies. And now we're going to move into our story. And I think that this sort of, ingress of Saturn into Pisces is the beginning of that experience of being sovereign and individualized, but being very, very much part of the collective and feeling part of the collective. And I think that's the new Earth community, tribal space that I certainly hope to see, and I think many other people too.
Yeah, and I also think Saturn moving into Pisces is a much better understanding of science and spirituality.
Right.
Saturn being the science, Pisces being the spirituality, and it's understanding spirituality more completely through the science. Like, that interview I did with Professor Robert Temple, New Science of Heaven, all about plasma, and understanding how plasma is our entire universe, and things which we might have felt are magical and actually are still magical, nevertheless have a science underpinning. And what you were also saying about the community energy, I mean, that's very much Uranus in Aquarius as well, that we are going to, that's a very important thing I want to say actually about this solstice as well. Find your unique essence in a deeper way than you have ever done before. Find your unique essence at this time to launch yourself into this whole new episode for humanity, because, it's an interesting slight paradox that with both Uranus and Aquarius, you are more individual than you've ever been to really access your individual contribution to the group, but the group is also much, much stronger than it's at the collective, the community, the collaboration, much stronger. Shall I stop sharing here, Davyd?
Yeah. Let's bring it down for the last few minutes, because there's a couple of points I wish to share, which I think are really cool. So, talking about the groups, one of the things that has come out of doing the quantum plant healing immersions, particularly during the Artemisias, was we had over 100 people all over the globe, all doing this online immersion together, but not in person. I never thought this would be possible, to be honest, and I've been very pleasantly amazed at how effective it's been. But what we were able to do working with the Artemisias was to create a global network, because the Artemisias work a lot with chi energy through our bodies, through our own dragon lines. And so that enabled us to connect through other dragon lines across the planet. And as a consequence, we now have a group of like-minded people. We do regular group calls outside of the immersions. They're free for people to join. You just have to sign up on the Quantum Plant Healing website, which is quantumplanthealing.com, which is free. But I want to share this because it's on one level, it seems like the first step of a global community, and it's been beautiful to see people open up and to share and to say, hey, you know what, man, my world of people has got smaller because I can't find people I resonate with anymore. And so somehow using the technology, using the internet, which is not always my favorite toy, and even using Zoom and YouTube, it's not something that comes particularly naturally to me, but I've seen through letting go of my own resistance and blockages to working with the technology. Being a plant person, this kind of stuff doesn't always sit so well, but having to come to terms with that and going, well, you know what, let's see if we can make this work for ourselves. Yes, there's many bad things going on around all of this technology, manipulations and so on and so forth, but I don't choose to see the technology in that frequency. I choose to see it as a way of communicating with people. And so I just want to share this because I think it's really, one aspect of how we can start to connect globally. And Zach has talked with me on some of the calls about the ability to have telepathic conversations down song lines, dream lines, dragon lines with other people who are resonating at a similar frequency. And we can see when we do the calls with everyone all over the world that many of us are resonating in the same ideas, even though we haven't spoken about it until we get on the call. It's like people are, this just happened to me, and this inspiration, and someone else is like, the same thing came to me this week too. And so it's like we can see much more clearly the collective frequencies which some of us are resonating at. And I think this is another exciting aspect of
You're
what
strengthening the light grid.
Exactly.
Different people scattered across the world, they're there in that geography for a reason, because they're strengthening the light grid in that area. And that's what's so exciting.
Right. And I also want to give a shout out in that regard to both your colleague Rory Duff and also Matthias Di Stefano, who's been doing some incredible work with people all over the world, working with crystal energies. We've been working with plant, they've been working with minerals and crystals to help activate various grids across the planet so that we can exist in a new energetic framework. And what I love about what you just said about science is that in the end, what's manifest in the 3D is the result of magic. It's all the result of magic. It's just how it appears into the 3D. And that works both on the side of the light and on the side of the dark. But it always starts off at a higher mind, hopefully, level of intention, or maybe on the more nefarious side and more astral 4D manipulation. But those are the different energies. And if we choose which one we're going to align to, then we can shape our future with our own magic. We are all magicians. We all have our own inner toroidal field, which is a self-generating nuclear reactor with vast capabilities. And that is what each and every one of us is. And that's just an amazing thing to consider, I think, to see ourselves in that way as well, not as some diminished being who's, beset by difficulties and challenges, but to rise above all of those and say, no, even in the moment of adversity, I can be scorpionic and tantric and transform the chaos energy into something that works for me. And we can do this with everything. We just have to have the strength to take on the difficult challenges and understand that they're really a gift for us to evolve. And, I just want to share that personal experience.
And the more that you are coherent in your own energy and you get coherent through love, joy, peace, gratitude, the more coherent you are, the bigger that toroidal heart field is, and the more you infect others you come in contact with that heart coherence. So you're spreading love via the toroidal field. And I don't know how this came to me the other day, but I think almost we have, in the universe, I think it's all based on fractality. And I think the way that the different universes connect is via toroidal fields, via the center of the toroidal fields. That fractality that echoes right through the universe that we have really yet to discover, like a series of Russian dolls. We are not the be end and of the universe. We are a tiny divine spark amidst all of it. The vastness is infinite.
And yet it's fractal, so we are always a mirror of the bigger. The micro and the macro is something that I work with all of the time. Whatever is going on for me somehow is a reflection of what is going on at the collective level. And if I can be centered and clear enough in myself, I learn so much about this process. And it's also how I help navigate through my life, is understanding that I'm part of that fractal dynamic. And we may yet find out that at the center of all this, we might even have a wormhole or a black hole or a portal or something, because that's been a big part of the energy of the last couple of months with the eclipse, which was a real doozy. That was a big, strong one. I have to say, I think November 2022 was probably one of the most difficult months of all of this. It was like all of the of stuff that needed to be resolved. Who knows exactly what came through that eclipse, but I think a bunch of stuff. And again, some of it was challenging. And if we allowed ourselves to be pulled down by that, it could be meltdown moment for some of us. Or if we're like, this is kind of full on and this is intense, but let's just keep working with it, because obviously it's part of a process. And that's where the dandelion sense of trust comes in. It's like, everything's okay. It's always okay. If it's not okay, sit down, have a beer, chill out, and ask yourself why it's not okay. And dandelion says, we do not do stress in New Earth. And that is a motto that I'm very much taking on board, because I don't want to be stressed anymore. I've had plenty of that in my life, thank you. It's not a frequency I enjoy, right? And I'm sure you too, and I'm sure probably everybody listening. But in New Earth, we don't do stress. It doesn't actually exist at a 5D level. It's very much a 3D experience from a 4D manipulation or trauma. So just for the very last 2 minutes, Pam, can you just share with us what's coming up at the end of December? Because I think it's a very important lead-on energy into the new year, which we can grab hold of and work with, kind of all systems go.
Yeah, I think the big thing I'd like to say, yes, Mercury goes retrograde on the 28th. Mars is still retrograde until the 12th of January. So that may seem like, a slightly slower beginning into the new year. You know, there may be strikes or protests or demos even more widespread than they currently are. But nevertheless, the overall momentum of everything I've been saying, the forward movement, wins out very powerfully. March is a super powerful month. And remember that the equinox we'll have then, the Aries equinox, is the astrological beginning of the new year. And that is mega powerful. And so just keep focusing on that. Don't wobble. There may be big 3D events coming in to throw us off our path. No, they are meant to throw you off your path.
Right.
So, but you are smarter than that. You can up your game, saying, I'm sticking to my GPS of love. Right. You just hold that target, hold that vision. Even if you don't know the detail of where you're going, stick to gratitude, appreciation, peace, joy, and love.
I couldn't agree more. And, you know, I think that we've been taught to be so secure, conscious, and always wanting to know everything's going to be okay, that we deny ourselves the possibility of an adventure into the unknown. And having gone through that process very powerfully over the last year, it can be scary, it can be challenging, but it can also be incredibly rewarding and inspiring. And actually, when you open yourself up to the unknown, spirit often brings something much more exciting than you could ever possibly have imagined, as I'm feeling sitting here right now.
Look at you
Right?
in this palace, this Mexican palace that you're in.
Right. So, you know, that's what I want to share as a final thought is, as you said before, my life is made of magic and miracles, hashtag. Right. So, you know, that's a beautiful place to end. For those of the audience who aren't familiar with your work, Pam, where can they find out more about your work and what you do?
Yep, pamgregory.com, very busy YouTube channel, Pam Gregory, astrology, and yeah, it's all on my website, long monthly newsletter. Yeah, I'm not doing any client work, but I'm doing a lot of videos and interviews right now to help people through this transition. Yeah, right. It's very exciting, a very exciting time on Earth right now, and just hold that vision and hashtag look what love built.
Exactly. And also, you know, collaboration. I think that's something that's come to both of us this year with our work and collaborating with more people and opening up new dynamics and different ways of looking at things. So for those of you out there who are not familiar with my work so much, please do check out quantumplанthealing.com, where we have a global group now of like-minded quantum plant people. And also you can still access some of the immersions, even though they're past, people are still doing them retrospectively, particularly dandelion and the Artemisia is very powerful plants. So please do check that out. And this video will also be going out on wisdomhub.tv, where there's also plenty of other very new teachings about plants and biodynamic farming and many things like this. So as always, Pam, thank you so much for your time. I know that you are super busy. Again, huge gratitude for the journey that you've taken me on over the last 18 months and for introducing me to people like Zach also and Janet and many, many other wonderful people. And also to thank all of the people out there who've watched the videos I've done with you and who've reached out to me and are now part of my life too. Many, many people are now friends in my life, contacts, or even more because of the videos. And that's what we can do, even though me and you have never even met in person, right?
No, we haven't. And it's been amazing. It's been such fun. Yeah. And, you know, look at the different place you are in right now. And, you know, I've shifted a bit as well, but, you know, for you, it's been meteoric. So well done, you. You know, you walk your talk. You walk your talk.
Thank you. And I just want to share that we can all do this, you know, and we all have different ways of accessing our truth. And that's where we're at, guys. This is the time to really express our inner truth, free from any kind of distortions or anything that might try to tell us or put us down that that's not valid. You know, whatever is in our heart is purely valid and it's our truth. So stick to the plan, stay on target. Keep yourself toxicity free and just be in a place of trust and awe and wonderment, because as Pam so beautifully shared today, so much is coming down the road towards us that is going to be something that we haven't experienced probably ever before. So just keep that in here. Thank you, Pam. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Hope to see you all again very soon. And please do check out our various websites and offerings, because there's a lot of really amazing people sharing out there right now. God bless everybody. Big love, big hugs, and solstice blessings to you all. Ciao for now.
Bye, everyone. Lots of love. Bye.
Bye.